Hey everyone, Sev here. Today I'm doing a new style of video, something that I thought about and I thought about it and I kept thinking, planning it out, and I really want to do it. And I want to do it for a lot of decks that I really like, and although this one isn't necessarily a deck that I think many of you guys would kind of figure that I would have liked, but I did pick it up and I did really enjoy it. This is still one of the most meta decks I own, next to Plunder Patrols. So yeah, you guys have seen the thumbnail, you've seen the title, you know. I guess I'll explain more about why I titled it and what is this? What is this video? So I figured, instead of, like, for some of these decks that I really enjoy and the decks that I really like, I try to constrain my deck profiles to a set amount of time. I don't try to, there's certain things that, like, there's certain questions, and so I created this series, the Omnibus series, which is basically, like, it's all encompassing. It shows you where to start with the deck, certain different builds of the deck, how those builds work, certain upgrades you can do, certain deck choices you can do, certain techs you can do, and all sorts of things with the deck that you can do geared toward the format I'm currently making the video in. So, as you've seen from the thumbnail and title, you'll know that this is the Omnibus for the Dark Worlds, for the Dark World deck. So basically, I'll go over in pretty extreme not extreme, I guess, like pretty vivid detail about the strengths and weaknesses of the overall archetype, and then break down the two most popular versions of the deck that you can build, and certain upgrades and certain deck choices you can go along with that. And then we'll go from there. So I hope you guys all enjoy the first installment of this hopefully pretty neat series. So I hope you guys all enjoy the Dark World Omnibus.
Please welcome Rainbow, Overlord of Dark World!
So I think it's very important we start off this Omnibus correctly with where you can get started with playing Dark World. Most recently, in 2022, there was a structure deck release that entirely revamped the Dark World strategy, introducing several new cards, including the new Graphifusion, Dark Lord Accession, Rainbow over King of Dark World, and many other cards that just make the strategy more improved. Picking up three copies of this structure deck will easily be your beginner's, essentially a beginner's way into the deck. It has everything you really need. It has 3 of the field spell, it has 3 of the 3 Genta, it has everything you could possibly want, except some extra deck toolbox stuff which you can pick up. Basically, for the most part, all of it's pretty cheap, and even if not, you can find budget alternatives. And the structure deck even comes with most of the really decent danger monsters, so it's not like you have to really worry about, if you want to play the Danger Dark World variant, you don't have to pick up the dangers, which Danger Nessie, Jackalope can be pretty expensive. But since it comes with Tsuchinoko, Bigfoot, Thunderbird, Mothman, and even Chupacabra, all those are really decent dangers which really do make the deck go around. And some of those dangers are actually some of my favorites. Now, I think talking extra deck is also something now that I think is pretty important to do with the Danger deck. The Danger deck is I don't want to say it's extremely generic, but it has a lot of tools at its disposal, and it's extremely toolboxy, which is something I think many people might gravitate towards the deck for, is the fact that the deck can be pretty toolboxy. It's very tool it to how you like to play it. Cards like Muckraker, Coach King Giant Trainer, Saryuja Skulldread, Apollosa Bow the Goddess, IP Masquerena, Dark the Dark Charmer, and a ton of other extra deck tool cards, even number 60, Daguerre's the Timeless, really make this deck just really build to how you feel the deck would work best, and really build your budget, because like from top of my memory, Coach King Trainer at lowest rarity is sitting at about $8 right now. So I do not have a copy of Coach King Trainer on me, but if I did, I'd be probably playing it in both of my builds, because although it's hard to make, in the Danger build specifically, it's extremely easy to make and it gets you an easy 3 draws. So now that we know where to begin, what do we do now? Well, say you have your 3 copies of your Darkhold structure deck and you picked up some of the extra deck pieces that I showed earlier on in this section. Now, there's 2 main variants of the deck that are meta prominent. There is the Danger Darkworld variant, which uses, of course, the Danger engine. And then there's also the variant that uses Tour Guide and Sandkin to search out Neko Main King, and on your opponent's turn when they activate a spell card, they use the Graph of Fusion to make your opponent discard the Neko Main King, which then ends your opponent's turn, allowing you to clean up rather easily. In this video, I'll be going over both variants if I have access to both variants, and I'll be going over the pros and cons of each variant. So this begs the question, which variant is better? And I'll be showing you guys that in this next section. We'll be going side-by-side comparisons of both variants, giving you the pros and cons of each and how I currently have them built, and then you can decide for yourself which one you want to use. Okay, so this first variant will be the Tour Guide variant. I'm not playing any dangers in it to make it, just basically to make the effect where you can end your opponent's turn as consistent as possible and not risking it with the dangers. 3 copies of Genta, the Gateman of Darkworld. Basically, you pitch this, you add the Gates of Darkworld, and then if it gets banished, you can summon it back, but that effect is a hard once per turn. But the field spell add effect is not, so. Next up is 3 copies of Snow Unlight of Darkworld. Again, this is easily one of the best cards in the entire deck. If you discard this card, add any Darkworld card from your deck to your hand. If you can possibly loop this, then like just do it, because you can add as much as you need as long as you can loop it. As long as you can loop the discard. Next, double copies of Beige and Brow respectively. Beige just summons itself back and is pretty easy to make rank 4s. Brow is a draw when discarded, and you can draw 2 cards if it's discarded by an opponent's card effect. Next up, 2 copies of Rainbow over King of Darkworld. If this card is discarded, you add a level 5 or higher Darkworld from your deck to your hand, and then you can bounce back a level 7 or lower Darkworld back to your hand, and then you summon this out. Pretty easy for rank 8 turbos, for rank 8 making. You can use this to make number 38 Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy if you want to, but or any other rank 8 you feel like you want to play. Next, 2 of the original Grapha Dragon Lord of Darkworld. The discard effect is mandatory, so even though your opponent might not have a target to pop, it still needs to activate, so it will activate, but it will resolve without effect. You can return 1 Darkworld monster you control except itself to your hand, and then summon this back, and that's a not once per turn. So that's a great way to keep bouncing back your Darkworlds back into your hand and summoning this out. Next, 2 Silva Warlord of Darkworld. This is just one of the best ones that is like the least brickiest. If it's discarded, you special summon it back, and then if it's discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card, your opponent places exactly 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of their deck in any order. So basically, this is also part of the hand loop variant, where basically you just try to hand loop your opponent. Then you could also play Lucent Netherlord of Darkworld, which in this variant I am playing Small World because of the fact that I don't have Allure of Darkness. I'd be playing Allure of Darkness if I had it, but I do not currently. It's the first effect is the same as Silva, it's just special summons itself back, but if it's discarded by an opponent's card, you special summon one fiend monster from your deck to either field. So you can actually use this to cheat out any of your Dark Worlds or even your Sandgin or, I don't know, any other goofy tech you want to play in this deck. In this variant, I do play Ceruli. I don't like Ceruli because I like playing Ceruli in this variant, but not the Danger variant, because the Dangers can serve as extenders in the Danger variant, whereas without the Dangers, you kind of need this Ceruli to help like start sniping some Dark Worlds out of your hand. So Ceruli in this variant, I don't like playing it. It can actually be a small world bridge because it's unique level. You can reveal it, reveal Salamander, get Brow, get Grapha, get Rainbow, get Silva, get Lucent, get on the next one you can get Parl. Parl is essentially just a monster reborn when discarded. Then it does something that never comes up, like about summoning fiends from Banished Zone and stuff like that. So that's all the Dark Worlds for this variant. This lineup won't change extremely much when you switch over to the Danger variant. I play 3 Salamander Catalyzer because I want to see Salamander, but to be quite frank, you could easily drop this down to 2, and it'd be just as fine. But in a Small World variant, I'll play this at 3. Thank you very much. And then next up, we have 3 copies of Tour Guide from the Underworld, 1 copy of Sandgin, and then Neko Main King, which you'll search off of the Sandgin. So basically, like, Salamander you never want it to be your normal summon. You want Tour Guide in this variant. You want Tour Guide to be your normal summon. So normal summon Tour Guide, special Sandgin. It gives you 2 additional bodies to make Saryuja. Use Sandgin search for Neko Main King, to Saryuja draw, or whatever you linked it off to. And then boom, you have like the first half of the combo done. And then 3 copies of Ghost Spell in order to stop Bystials because Dark deck. Again, you can cut the Ghost Spells if you want to. If you don't want to fear the Bystials, then cut the Ghost Spells. But I fear Bystials. The Gates of Dark World, again, mandatory 3 of. Like, you want 3 of this, even if you don't want to play like this variant. All variants of Dark World, you'll play 3 of this. 2 copies of Accession. This is your fusion spell. You can discard cards if you're fusing for the Grapha fusion. But basically, you'll want to see this. You can either set it and then just make the Grapha fusion on your opponent's turn, or you can just make it on your turn. But if you want to play around, if Nibiru ever becomes prominent again in another format, then you'll want to probably get to your Muckraker and your IP, set this, and then you can make it on your opponent's turn. 1 Archives to round out all the Dark World spell traps. Basically what Archives does is it can boost Dark World's attack by discarding Dark Worlds. Then if a Dark World is discarded by a card effect, you can discard a card and draw 2 cards. Pretty neat card. Definitely allows for some unique extension plays. Then, as I mentioned, we need to make up for the dangers, so we're playing 3 copies of Small World. There are, I believe, no lines of play that allow you to bridge into snow, which sucks. So I mean, again, if you want to play Lure of Darkness, easy trade out. You can even drop like Ceruli too, and you can drop a copy of Salamander if you want to play Lure of Darkness. Then 3 copies of Skill Drain, just as a backup method to kind of help win games. I mean, a lot of our effects work in the graveyard, so Skill Drain isn't really that impactful. And then this extract won't really change for my variations between variants, so double Grapha Fusion, 1 Dueris, 1 Abyss Dweller. Specifically for this format, this is like a flex spot. 1 Hope Harbinger. In the Danger variant, you make this a lot. In this variant, not so much. 2 copies of Muckraker from the Underworld. If you want to, you can swap one of these out for a copy of Coach King, and then your list will just become more consistent, really. Muckraker, although is not extremely cheap anymore, it's still like, there's no card that can really replace it, sadly. 1 Masquerena, because it's Masquerena. In this variant, you end on your Muckraker and your Masquerena, and maybe the Graph-Fusion. And what this can lead into is a Graph-Fusion, which ends your opponent's turn, and then an Apollosa just to make sure it goes through. 1 Dark, because you're playing a Dark deck, and Dark is extremely powerful. 1 Phoenix and 1 Unicorn. If you want to, you could probably cut, like, I don't know, you could maybe cut a Graph-Fusion. Actually, no, there's something later on that you could, that's a flex spot. 1 copy of Boral Sword Dragon, 1 copy of Apollosa the Goddess, 1 Saryuja Skulldread, and 1 World Sea Dragon Zealantis. Zealantis is the flex spot here. If you want to drop this, you can play Cerberus instead, and it do like just as good a job as Zealantis does. But I don't have Cerberus, but I do have Zealantis, so. Again, that extra deck won't really change between variants. It'll really just depend on what you want. So now we'll do the Danger variant. Alright, and then this is the Danger Dark World variant. We're not playing the FTK, Surgeon Echo Main King, and your bonus turn. Extra deck has not changed between the 2 variants, so like just take the extra deck portion from the last, from the FTK variant, and just literally copy and paste it. Same flex spots in the extra deck. So, playing 2 Rainbow Overking of Dark World, double Grapha Dragon Lord of Dark World. Grapha is like Rainbow. You need to think about when you want to use his return and summon effect. Grapha, literally just use this. It's not a once per turn, so as long as you can keep getting Dark World on the field, you can keep summoning this back, which is the beauty of old cards. 3 copies of Genta Gateman of the Dark World. Again, this searches the gates of the Dark World field spell, so it's extremely important. It serves an extender, and you can loop if you can find a way to get Graph in the graveyard and this on the field. You can bounce this back and search a field spell again. However, you cannot summon it from the banished again the same turn. If you could, that'd just be broken. 3 copies of Snow, searches anything. Again, very important card in the deck. If you can loop this, do it. It'll be very, very good for yourself. 3 copies of Brow, Huntsman of the Dark World, or Huntsman of Dark World. Basically, when this card's discarded, you draw a card, so you can essentially go +1 on almost any discard interaction you have, or like +2 on some. If you want to drop this from 3 to 2, you can put in Ceruli if you feel like it. I don't like Ceruli in this variant because it creates where like with the dangers, you at least have some control of when you activate them. With Ceruli, you don't necessarily have that element of control anymore. So, I mean, yeah, you could also do 3 copies of Beige instead if you want to go for that. Then 3 copies of Beige, 2 copies of Brow. I prefer Brow because I notice this deck sometimes it really lacks hand advantage, so 3 Brow is just fine by me. But if I notice that I don't like it, then I'll switch it up. 2 copies of Beige, Vanguard of Dark World. Again, this card is just bread and butter. If it's discarded, summon it back. It's all of these effects, the old ones at least, if they get discarded, they are mandatory effects. So they always go as Chainlink 1 and they can't go as Chainlink 2 or higher unless it's, I think even if it's your opponent's turn, they have to go as Chainlink 1 because they're mandatory effects. So like if you Snow gets discarded on your opponent's turn, it has to activate as Chainlink 1. But they're not, none of these miss timing though. So they're mandatory. It's weird to explain, but none of these miss timing. They're all mandatory, non-optional effects. You have to activate them, or they have to activate, and you have to resolve them if possible. Next, 2 copies of Silva. This is very important for the hand loop. If you want to perform the hand loop, if you can perform the hand loop. Silva essentially just says, if your opponent discards this card, bottom 2 cards from their hand, which, due to Graphofusion, is pretty common. However, I noticed that I kind of go for like a big wombo combo build your board type thing. Similar to Adamantipator, really. So I usually end on like the Graphofusion Hope Harbinger and a 4 negates Apollosa. So I mean, you know. But if you can't end on this, on top of all that, like your opponent just isn't playing. Then 1 copy of Parl Hermit of Dark World. Again, it hasn't changed. I think Parl is just fine at 1. It's a decent extender when necessary, but anything more than 1, you're just kind of reaching. Like, so we play a lot of monsters in this deck in general. Next up, 2 copies of Salamander Catalyzer. Again, this is a honorary Dark World card. Like, seriously, this card is amazing. And onto the danger portion, we're playing 3 Bigfoot, 3 Mothman, 2 Choop, 1 Sneck, 1 Ness, 1 Thunderbird. So I'm gonna break down my all my danger ironically. It was massive. This is the biggest video I've ever made to date. And I mean, granted, that's not saying much, as this will probably go out to like 30 or so minutes, but still, this is easily one of the biggest projects I've ever undertaken, bigger than getting better at Yu-Gi-Oh, bigger than so far anything I've done. And it's something I really enjoy doing. It's something that really allowed me to kind of flex my editor muscles. But again, like, this is a ton of effort, and hopefully it goes over well with you guys. Hope you guys enjoy this type of video. I won't make these for every single deck. I'll make these. Next one I'll do is 100% Predaplant if it becomes good again. But yeah, I'd like to thank all of you for watching this video. I appreciate every single one of you. You guys have allowed me to do crazy things that I never imagined I'd be able to do. Like, I never imagined I'd have the amount of subscribers I have. Even though it's not even past 100, it's still pretty astounding that it's as high as it is. And the view count too, it's crazy. I still can't believe I have a video that's almost at 3,000 views. So I'd like to take a little moment of this video to say thank you to every single person who watches this video and who subscribes and who subscribed, and everyone who basically watches my content. This is a hobby for me, but if I start making money off of it, that'd be great, because college is right around the corner and college is pretty expensive. Anything to help out with that. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in another one. Be good people.